Hello, everybody. My name is Corey Rosen, and you're listening to the Story Podcast. Today, we have on two awesome guests, Mr. Seth and Carina. Seth Daniel Franqui is currently attending Harrisburg Area Community College, majoring in marketing with a focus on graphic design. Seth is a musician, having been involved in competitions all throughout high school and eventually releasing his own albums on streaming platforms under his name, Daneyl. In his free time, he prefers to be quiet in a quiet space where he can write music and create new projects. Carina Bruno is currently attending Lancaster Bible College, majoring in communication and biblical studies. She is a writer, a public speaker, having written several articles for ministries and nonprofits, and done a tour in Europe.
Little tour of Europe, just London.
She has also won public speaking competitions at district and international levels. She has a passion for creative projects and meaningful conversation in her free time. She prefers to be alone with either a notebook or a novel. You guys are also from the esteemed, wonderful podcast, The Introvert City.
Thank you for that description.
Yes.
We're esteemed.
Esteemed. Hi, I'm Seth.
Yes, and I'm Carina. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, of course. So let's dive into it. We'll start with generic questions that you guys will both answer, and then we'll get into more fun stuff.
Cool.
So where did your passion, we'll start with you, for music begin?
Starting with me.
That'll be you.
So, thank you. So, I've kind of always just been interested in music. Ever since I was a kid, I just always loved singing and being around music. And growing up in church, my mother was leading worship and my father was playing the drums. And, you know, my sisters were always singing in our house and whatever. And my grandfather sang too and all that type of stuff. And I just always really enjoyed music and seeing other people sing. And I was very influenced very young in my childhood about music. So when I want to say around a preteen age, I started really developing a love for all sorts of different types of genres, from jazz and hip hop and rock and, you know, maybe country. And as I got into high school, I started really letting myself shine. And I wouldn't say I competed. I just did more of like I was in certain groups. I was in my school show choir and their production company. I also danced quite a bit, and I was pretty known for being a dancer in my school. I developed piano skills, and I did a couple of talent shows and shows. I remember traveling around like the city and parts of this area of PA to do singing and stuff like that. My main instruments are piano and guitar. In particular, piano. I love playing piano, and yeah, I also love writing, and I love rapping as well. And I would say that for me, and to encompass everything in just one statement, is that I kind of found music at a time where I really needed something to kind of grasp onto, and it was something that just helped me get through and keep me busy at a time where I was kind of floundering a little bit. So that's what I would say my journey for music is.
How about you in speaking? I'm sure you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, honestly, I think I started out too wanting to be a music kid, and I actually played violin when I was in elementary school. And
really?
yeah, I was starting to get into like music theory, and I loved it. The only thing is I did grow bored of it, and I almost wish like I had that force to keep me in it and told me like, doesn't matter if you don't like it right now, keep going. Because I would have loved to still be able to play, you know, but it's okay. Honestly, my parents were like letting me do what I wanted to do. So I went from like doing music to doing musical theater and choir in high school. And then my sophomore year, I took public speaking class, and I was like the shyest person ever. We were both still shy, obviously, introvert city. But like at the time, I was just very hermited, and I wasn't good at being social, making friends, and I was not expecting to fall in love with the class, and I just did, and made great friends. It was a really small class, and all of us in the class had to do a competition. I don't know if anyone has heard of the Optimist Oratorical. It's like a well-known thing for public speakers, but I actually ended up getting really far, and I was not expecting to, and my teacher pulled me aside and was like, this could, be something. And I just kept doing competitions, and I fell in love with it. And it's just so interesting to me that someone as quiet and reserved as myself could fall in love with something like that. You know, public speaking is like the number one fear, I mean, after death. So I just found that I could, like, the idea of speaking a meaningful message to a group of people and getting to like plan, prepare, commit, and basically perform these words was like really beautiful to me. So I love doing it. So yeah, my most recent competition was in London. It was so cool. Like, I never thought I would get to experience something like that. And yeah, I'm hoping to continue to do it. Not sure if it will pay bills at any point, but it's what I love. So
there you go.
Yeah.
So for music, where do you find your inspiration? What first record did you listen to that was like?
So there's a lot of ways I could answer that question, but I kind of have a different genre of music in different times where I think I really clicked with certain types of music and certain types of genres. But if I want to say there was one moment that I really decided I was like, this is some quality music. I think I was listening to the track. I'm going on a blank for a second, but this was back early on in my sophomore year, and I was listening to a lot of like older type 70s type music. And I think when I first listened to What's Going On by Marvin Gaye is where my ears kind of opened up, and I was like, I did not realize that an album could be this fully fleshed out and bright and gorgeous. In that album, I believe it's a 1971 record by Marvin Gaye, as people know, but in particular the track Ride On, which is like a 7-minute long track in the album, just blew my mind. For one, I wasn't always a big fan of super long tracks, but hearing that track, I was like, I didn't even realize how long it was, because I just loved it so much and it spoke to me so much. The different types of musical interjections going on throughout the track just really sparked something inside of me, and I was like, I really want to learn more about music and do more with music.
That's how I felt about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is my favorite
Queen
track
fan,
ever.
Queen fan.
Have you seen the movie?
I have not, and that's one. I saw Rocket Man when it came out.
Okay.
Because Elton John is my inspiration for music.
That's
I
awesome.
think we kind of went over that in the Introvert
Yeah,
Study
we
podcast.
did.
By the way, I was on the show, so you should go check that out.
But I just asked if you watched it because there's a line in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody that's like, this 7-minute song is never something that teenagers could bob their heads to in the car. And I just thought that was such an ironic line. Yeah, it's a great track.
I know the story behind it really well. Is that like, this will never do well. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the same thing with like Tiny Dancer of Elton John's. They never thought it would do well, but recently it's been like one of his best songs. Yeah. That has at least gotten really, really popular. Mm-hmm. So for you, public speaking wise, who do you look to?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that there's a particular speaker that I look up to, just because I'm not honestly very well versed in like the motivational speaking realm. Honestly, I grew up listening to like apologists and theologians, because I've always knew I was going to go to a Bible college and everything, and I really admired those people who could like get up and defend their faith in front of a crowd of thousands. So that's, I think, where my love for it started, and then I started watching TED Talks and I love them. Although for some reason lately, TED has taken a really weird direction, and like now it feels like they're picking anyone to speak. Right. Yeah. But like I feel like TED used to be full of like really specifically gifted speakers. So grew up listening to them. Honestly, now I'm working for a nonprofit organization called Living Strong Consulting. Works with people, and my boss, Dr. Virdra Jackson, does life coaching, and she is a professional speaker. And honestly, I love working under her because I feel like I look up to her so much, and I see like what that type of life is like to be a speaker and a businesswoman and to do all the things. It's a very like rigorous lifestyle. But I love her, and I feel like she's given me a lot of opportunities. So she's definitely a person that I feel grateful to know in that realm.
Speaking about, public speaking, businesses, you guys have your own little podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me about how that started.
I will.
You can start, and I will correct him because he'll forget things.
Correct me. I can start, and she can correct me. So, the podcast, I want to say honestly, the idea of a podcast show was kind of stewing in our brains for like a little while.
Yeah.
I want to say at least at least maybe even like 6 months.
Okay.
Straight up. I think
don't
so.
know.
I think so
Okay,
because
maybe your brain.
you definitely like podcasts a lot, and
Yeah.
I had been listening to a lot of podcasts during that summer while I was working at another job, and I was getting into them, and and we had wanted to kind of not necessarily start one together for that long, but you know, I think she had just recently started a radio show at her school
Yeah.
at LBC, and I thought it was pretty cool.
I still gotta take that class.
Oh, the radio class?
Yeah, the radio class.
I've never taken it.
Oh, no?
I
Me
just
neither,
I just
yeah.
started the show.
That's fair enough.
But I think that both of us were very inspired, but there was one time in particular where we were on a walk, and I kind of brought up the idea, and I was like, oh, this would be really cool if we did this and did that. And we were in a bit of an odd place in our relationship. Not that we were like, well, actually, if you guys watch one of our most recent episodes, we talk about that a little bit, but we were in a place in our relationship where we were kind of in a weird space mentally and emotionally with the way that we were kind of viewing ourselves and each other. And in particular, I was going through a big change at that point. And we just didn't know for sure, but then we kind of had gotten better with some things, and we decided, sure, let's do it. And in November of 2022, was that?
Mm-hmm.
November 2022, we decided to start it. And I would say probably the biggest inspiration for why we started it has to be my appreciation and her appreciation for like the Perry's podcast.
Yeah.
We just recently saw them too.
Jackie and Preston.
Jackie Hill Perry and Preston Perry. Their podcast, among other podcasts, but their podcast in particular, just really made us think like, wow, this is a pretty cool thing that people can do and have like a really nice flavor of comedy while also having a nice serious tone and you know, being able to be really zany and creative and have a lot of charisma behind the mic. So I would say that helped. And also just the whole idea of two introverts coming together to talk and, you know, I guess talk your ear off for like an hour is just kind of also a really cool shtick that we kind of get to work with every couple of weeks that we do our episodes. So
So tell me about the format, because it's way different than this show, where we usually have a guest every single show.
Yeah.
And she's like, here you go.
No, also good job with the foundation of the podcast.
Thank
That was
you.
pretty accurate. Yeah, I love doing it. I feel like it's been such a great outlet for us. Honestly, even when we were struggling with our relationship issues, like it almost was like, I'm not going to say it was like therapy because I'm not making that comparison, but we were literally forced to sit down and talk about our differences.
Cathartic.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I feel like we were able to be our most authentic selves because we wanted the camera to capture our most authentic selves. So we would like, it was like a raw moment where we would laugh and talk about serious things sometimes. And we did have guests on, and our guest episodes, at least in the beginning, were really heavy. So it was just a good space to like get us really thinking about what we want out of life. And that's like it. If we continue to have a smaller platform, like it's ours, you know. And so I love that, and I hope we continue to do it for a while. Yeah. But your question was, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
What is the format, typically?
Oh, yeah. So usually it's just the two of us, and we usually have an idea of what we're going to talk about, but we don't. I know a lot of people, like, choose the title, choose bullet point. Yeah, they use script. We have never used a script. Like, we just choose a vague topic. Like, we just did an episode this week that's going to come out in a couple of days about, like, forgiveness and grudge holding. And we're like, that's all we said. We said, let's talk about forgiveness and grudge holding and maybe cancel culture that's happening with celebrities right now. And we just talked for, like, 30 minutes. And I don't know, the biggest compliment that I've heard from listeners is that we're able to carry the conversation well, or we have good chemistry, and I think that's because of like the friendship that we have. And so it's nice that we can just, not everything is pre-planned.
yeah.
So
Something a recent guest told us was that like you said, our chemistry is good in that we make it look easy. Like as in just talk, I think that generally as long as you keep a lighthearted tone and you make sure that like you're understanding and you're trying to hear out what the other person is saying and fully paying attention and understanding to a T, because a lot of our show, Spotify labels us as a comedy.
I don't know why.
Really?
We're not that funny.
Spotify labels us as a comedy podcast, but we're definitely not a comedy podcast, but I would say we're very lighthearted, and there's a lot of aspects of our show that do lend itself to just general, a lot of wit back and forth. And I feel like that's something that plays to our strengths. And a lot of people genuinely tend to like those parts of our show a lot, like you were saying.
But there's not really a set, like, it is hard to categorize ourselves sometimes because we've had a lot of, like I said, really heavy, vulnerable guest stories. We've talked about the prison system quite a lot. I think that's because of the connections that we have to certain guests. But yeah, we interviewed a man in season 1 who had been in the prison system and gotten out of it and was talking about that. And most recently, we had a woman who works with children of incarcerated parents and talking about how that affects them. So those are the more heavier episodes. And then we've had like some guests talk about more spiritual things and just like heavy. And then, like you said, we've also literally had episodes where we talk about like video games and stuff. So it's just, there's not really a category for it. I think the message we're trying to get across to our audience is that we are two introverted individuals who sometimes struggle in crowds, but like when we come together and we are intentional about conversation, it feels like we're very productive, you know?
Yeah.
And I hope that other people watching, whether they're introverts or extroverts or whatever, feel like inspired by that and feel like they can have meaningful conversation when they're intentional about it. So yeah, we are introverts, but our target audience, I guess, is like anyone who wants to create meaningful dialogue. That's our goal and purpose.
I will say, little live feedback, that it was a lot of fun having being on the show, and it seemed really, really well, and I had literally no complaints about it whatsoever. So.
We appreciate that.
No, there's a lot of things we need to work on, but we appreciate that, seriously.
What would you say? What would you say that you need to work on?
I think personally, I would say some of the things are just general. I do think sometimes we could definitely have more bullet points laid out for each other, because sometimes because we do edit our episodes.
Yes.
So sometimes there are like big sections where we have to be like, does that actually sound right? No, it doesn't. And then it's like, going back and editing. But we're pretty good at making it look seamless in the show.
Yeah,
and
I
able
think so.
to edit it and cut certain parts out. But another thing is that we also definitely could, because sometimes there are times where one of us works more, the other works more, and we definitely could be better at, because there's some seasons where both of us are very equal, or then one of us is doing a lot of work, and then the other one maybe isn't. And so I would say that there are, because like Carina, I'll say this, she usually edits most of our episodes. For the full.
It's also fun for me. I like it.
She likes it, but it is a lot of work.
Right.
It's no easy task to be like, go sit at a table for 8 hours and edit a podcast episode. But we try our best to even it out, and we've gotten better. But it definitely is still hard to really try and even it out, especially since both of us, there's a lot of aspects we both really enjoy, because we both like video editing and photo editing and making funny reels.
Yeah.
Reels have kind of been a big, our reels have been a big help for us recently. In fact, sometimes our reels have been getting more views than our actual
That's true.
YouTube
I think
videos.
That's how it works.
I think that's just how it works.
Yeah. And honestly, I would love to get to the point where we could go live and like have a cameraman and like pick which angle and have a whole team. That sounds so fun. Yeah. And it would honestly take so much work off our backs if we could just go live, post the live version. I don't know if it's something I'm really insecure about, that I'm like, I can't just speak like this. Being live on your show right now is scary to me. I'm like thinking about what I'm going to say, just because we've had so many moments where we'll say something and we'll be like, we definitely can't say that. Like, let's cut that out. Not that, or just that like it comes out the wrong way, weird, and so we have to go back and fix it. I think honestly, with more experience, like you've been doing this for 2 years, I think with more experience we'll be able to get to that point. I would love to have other people do things with us instead of us having to figure out what to do, what to post. The algorithm is so difficult to understand.
It changes all the time.
Yeah. So I'm happy like with where we are and the progress that we've made, but I think as like business people, there's room to improve.
Oh
yeah.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah. But it's been cool, like, talking to you and talking to other people in the Lancaster area who have businesses or platforms that, like, started by themselves. Because so often I feel like famous people start podcasts or celebrities start podcasts,
Right.
and they're already famous, so they get their platform right away. Whereas we
Yeah.
have been working on it for a while, just
Like a
the
grassroots
podcast.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's been nice, getting in community with other people and realizing that we're not behind or anything. We're just starting steps back.
Yeah, well, and everywhere, like, I have a specific audience, music, right?
Mhm.
So, in a music podcast that has musicians on all the time that have their own audience, it's gonna build and expand differently than, for example, your guys' podcast where you talk about more deeper stuff, or maybe
Sure.
you don't have as many guests guests that maybe have a giant following
Right.
that a musician would or whatever. And so you really can't compare
Mhm.
to other podcasts. You can only compare and say, okay, what were we doing previously that we're now doing better?
Yes.
And that, I think, is where a lot of people get lost, because a lot of people are like, well, they're doing it this way, or they're doing it that way, or they're doing, whatever way, playing the competition game. And people need to realize that, especially in communities, we can't have competition. We can have community, right? It's collaboration, not competition. That's
good.
kind of the idea behind this is like, I'll go on your show, you guys come on my show.
Yeah.
We'll cross-pollinate and be the better for it.
Mhm.
As opposed to be like, stupid Carina and Daneyl.
I'm glad you didn't think that about us.
No, you guys are great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would definitely say that interviewing people is a thing that I think the two of us didn't expect to be good at. At least I didn't expect to be good at
I
it.
didn't expect to be good at it either.
Yeah, but we found that that's actually a thing that a lot of people who watch us really enjoy.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people really enjoy our interviews, and some of them are really fun. Oh, they're all really fun. But like some of them, but like in particular, like some of my favorite episodes have been with guests,
Right.
and like we just recently a few weeks ago had an episode with well, probably like a month ago, but had an episode with Abner Gonzalez and Ned Bustard.
Local
And
artists.
yeah, and that episode was so much fun to get done and take care of. And Abner and Ned were amazing, and they were extremely kind. And it was just a really easy flowing podcast episode. So a lot of them have been great, but they've also just been really big blessings, because we've gotten to meet a lot of really cool people who just have so much knowledge and have so much to share with the community. And I'm just glad that we get to have a little part in their story,
Well, this is a music podcast. You brought some music with you.
I did bring some music with me.
Let's talk about some music.
Okay,
First up,
so
we're going to play Cerebral. Tell me about it.
So Cerebral, oh my gosh. Okay, that track, I actually was writing that for like 7 months, that song.
Really?
Yeah, it took me a while to finish that track. So basically, the original sample is called Poxa by a band called Cortex, or is it Cortex by a band called Poxa? I forget the name. But the track is a really cool track that I hadn't heard about until a friend of mine, my friend Beanie Boy, showed me the track, and I was like, I really like that beat. It's really cool. At the time, I wasn't writing too much music, and I was like, I want to write something. And so I decided to, yeah. Cortex is the name of the artist. But at the time, I literally had split, because before that there was kind of a split in that summertime where I had a big experience. Something that I don't know if we mentioned, but we're both very serious Christians and very serious about our faith.
We'll definitely get into that.
And around that time, I was really experiencing a change in my personal relationship with Christ. And in August of that year, I had a really big faith experience. Ironic thing about that, it was right in between when I first started writing the song and finished writing the song. So the song is a literal representation of my experience at that point. It goes from how I was kind of dissatisfied with a lot of things I had tried in my life and a lot of things I had done, and I kind of wanted to change, and you can very much hear the change and almost like a bigger elation of my voice and the way that I feel about myself as the song goes on. So yeah, Cerebral, it's all up here.
Let's take a listen.
This life is crazy. Drugs and liquor don't amaze me. I'm waiting for someone to save me. Running from things that used to play me. Life is dangerous. I'm coming to grips with my own emotions, but I'm inside of my daily devotions. Pray every day, but I'm lost in the ocean. Give me some guidance from the pressure that I feel in silence. Attention divided, we're reignited. Dealing with feelings that make me feel lost and excited, but I can't fight it. Look through the lens, but I am inside it. Can't see the future up past the horizon. Forget all the diamonds. I want everything to move fast, but time is rolling back. I want everything in my head, but I'm carrying weight on my back. I feel an attack, I'm trying to fight, but an armor I crack, so I get on my knees. Let us some praise, and rush euphoria starts to play. For some correction, I'm in the middle of a life inspection, and the false temptations are and gone, but I'm held by the Father, so my faith is strong. I'm still catching up on the word of religion, so finding myself in these painful positions. I'm giving some, but not giving enough, and I'm feeling nervous, but I'm reaching out for the love from the higher one, Father, Spirit, Son, keeping the word as my gun. His grace is never done. He brought me from dark and dead and alleys, taking me over the mountain, through the valleys, keeping me upright. I'll never be blind. No, I'll never be blind.
And that was Cerebral.
Yes, it was.
Tell me a little bit about like what you used to, write that, to like what DAW do you use and stuff like that.
So I believe my friend Beanie Boy produced the track, and he used Ableton Live to produce it. And I really like the way Ableton works. I think Ableton is really it's easy to use, but not so easy that just any old Joe Schmo could jump on and use. You could go on and use, but it is definitely something that I think works really well, and has been a really great thing for both he and I. And he releases music as well through Ableton, or he uses Ableton to produce most of his tracks. The song really is like I was saying, like it's a psyche. In the ending part, you can hear where I'm like, Father, Spirit, Son, keeping the word as my gun. His faith is never done. And then in the track, in the choruses, you almost can kind of hear like a different type of. It's me singing too.
Right.
And then at the end, I have the harmonies that are like, I'm never blind. The song is supposed to come together in a big way to be like at the end, like I feel good, and almost as a reference to like Amazing Grace. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. And
really,
that's
yeah,
out, right?
that is out.
Yeah.
That is out.
And that's under Daneyl,
Eyl.
Eyl.
Yes.
So,
can I say
yeah,
something?
of course
For the
you
longest time, I thought that's how he actually spelled his middle name. Like, until recently, I thought that was how you spelled your middle name. But then he told me it was just his stage name. Because his middle name is Daneyl, but with an I-E-L.
Which I also love. I just thought that it looked cool with the Y.
It does look cool.
It does look cool. It's unique for
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely.
Okay, that's all.
That's Well, let's get into our religious beliefs, because I am also a Christian. Tell me, we'll start with you. Where did your religious journey start for you?
So I'll be honest. I wouldn't say that I ever learned about Christianity in my life. I kind of just was around it. I grew up in a Pentecostal church in the Assemblies of God. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and we went to an Assemblies of God church there, and then we moved to one down in Cleveland, Ohio, where my father pastored for 5 years, I want to say.
So you're a PK.
I am a PK. I was a PK, yeah. I did go to PK retreats when I was a kid. I did. But we then came to another church here, and I kind of was in it and out of it, and I wouldn't say that I really started to understand what Christianity was until I was like 13, 14. And by that point, we had kind of already left that church, and we were kind of, going to church in and out type stuff. And it's not that we left that, that church because of their beliefs or anything. We were just in a different state and moving forward, as a family. And, we were going through some things, and it kind of caused me to take a step back and look at my faith from a bigger lens and bigger perspective. And I was struggling for a few years. I didn't really know if I believed. There were even some times where I told people, I was like, yeah, I don't really believe in like Jesus or the Christian God. And I tried a lot of things, did some stuff that I'm not proud of in that time, tried some stuff, and made some friends who weren't the best for me. But eventually, I think when COVID hit, a lot of people had a different type of perspective of their life.
Sure.
And people changed a lot during that time period. And I think for me, I changed for the better overall. And when I met Carina, I really started thinking, I was like, wow, I mean, she takes this faith thing so seriously, and I don't. And I definitely was not honest with her about my experience with my faith at the time. But as we kept going, I was like getting so close to just feeling like I just felt a burden on my heart after she and I started dating, and I was kind of going in and out of church, and like every time I would bring up Christianity, I was like, yeah, I'm a Christian. I have problems with it, but I'm a Christian. I remember we had an argument about that one time. And then I want to say like late 2021, early 2022, I just was feeling weighted, and I was struggling. We were struggling in our relationship. I was kind of struggling at home. I was struggling in school. And I wasn't going to school. I dropped out. I was struggling with my love for music. I was struggling with my own personal perspective on myself. I was kind of going from a bunch of jobs to a bunch of jobs, and I was like, I don't know what I want to. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm confused on this whole faith thing, and I don't really know what I believe, but I want to believe something. And we kind of talked, and I was working overnight at a Walmart at that time, and there was a podcast that she sent me, and it just this woman was talking about, I think that she was an ex-seance or something like that. And I was like, oh, interesting. But she said something that was like, that I was talking about, she's like, if God can save me, then he can save anybody. And that just really spoke to me. And I had a really big faith experience that night, and my perspective just really shifted after that. Like I just felt different, and my life began changing a lot after that period, and things haven't been perfect. Right, of course. But I think that my life has been for the better and now I'm at a place where I have a good job. I really love my family. I love the friends that I have. I love the hobbies that I have, and I have time to give to those hobbies, and I'm with a woman who I love every day of my life. So yeah. So that's my faith journey right now.
Yeah. And I just also want to say, like, it's so inspiring. I love hearing Seth talk about his journey because, like, we've been together for so long at this point. Like, sometimes I forget the ups and downs that we have been through together, because when we started dating, I was 16, he was 17, and I also grew up in the church. Also, my dad was a pastor for a while. Yeah. It was temporary, but we used to go to church in Florida, and now we're here in PA. And I always, like, I grew up in it, and I loved my faith. Like, I was the kind of kid in elementary school who would, like, literally try to evangelize in, like, 5th grade. It was, but I didn't I didn't have like the deepest understanding of it. I just knew what I knew, and I loved it. So and I wasn't very experienced in the world, as they say. I was in public school, but I was still very sheltered. And anytime I like saw something bad or heard something bad, I just like immediately pray for them and like go to my own little corner again. Like I never really tried to get out there and meet different types of people. Right. So when I met Seth, I was like, because we had started talking and stuff, and then we had scheduled to go on our first date. And I just wanted to make sure. I was like, so what do you think about your faith? Like, I know you're a Christian and this and that. And you were like, oh, you know, like, he was like, I don't even remember what you said. I think, honestly, you started talking about worship as being, like, your favorite part. And that was, like, special to me. I was like, okay, he really values worship. But I just didn't realize, like, the big difference that we had. And I'm not saying, like, you were lying about anything or whatever. It's just we were in different places. And, and it wasn't until like I really started to ask him like, so what do you think about the church? And he's right. He would always say, you know, I just have so many problems with the church. Like I wouldn't even ask him about the problems with the church. He'd just bring it up, which is honestly fair because I think you have a lot of church hurt and so do I. Yeah. And I think it was interesting going through that together. Like I just have experienced, especially looking back on my childhood, like you always like notice it when you're older and you look back and you're like, oh, this person wasn't actually honest about that, or they weren't putting their money where they said it was going, you know, that type of thing. So that was hard for me. So we were dating for a while, and there was actually a period where when Seth had his really big faith experience and started taking his faith seriously, I started to let go a little bit and actually become, I don't know if you were like on Christian YouTube at the time, but there was a big thing happening like 3 years ago with progressive Christianity deconstruction. Yeah, everyone was like, oh, I'm just deconstructing. And I was like, I think I need to deconstruct. But it was this thing where like I was just like, oh, my whole life like I felt really sheltered up and maybe I haven't actually experienced life. And I started to watch like all these YouTubers and atheist destroys Christian debate, and I don't think I ever like lost I went down the rabbit hole. Yeah, I think it's inevitable, especially if you're a PK. But but I don't think I ever like lost hold of it. Like I always had my faith, but it went through stages, and I feel like where I'm at now, I feel like I've rebuilt it and feel very connected to it again, and definitely in a more mature way where it's like I've been exposed to what's actually going on around me. I don't feel as sheltered anymore, and I feel like I have a good hold on it, and it's the foundation of my life again. And I feel really like grateful for the way I was raised. I think honestly a lot of PKs will look back and like hate that they were raised in the church and hate like resent their family for teaching Christian values, but honestly like I feel so grateful for it because even though I struggled and felt isolated from the world, like I always had the foundation to go back to, you know? So I am so inspired by Seth's story because I went through a little bit of like go away then come back, but it was not nearly as like intense as his journey. And it's always just inspiring to remember where we've been and the ups and downs. We used to fight so much about it, like so much about our faith. I remember I couldn't even I felt like I couldn't ask theological questions because you would have a different response than I did. And at the time it's like any disagreements means you have to break up. So
you're a heretic.
Yeah. Honestly, that was my perspective, and that's the way my brain worked when I was little. But like I said, now I feel so solid, and we've had great counsel and like discipleship in our lives, and I feel so grateful for that. Really great friends who like never, even when we would bring our problems to them, they were never like, this is too much, you guys need to just break up. Like they literally walked us through all of it, and I feel so grateful for them and grateful for where we are now. And we do, and we do talk about our faith in the show a lot. I wouldn't say we have like a Christian podcast, we're just Christian podcasters.
Exactly.
Yep. So yeah, it feels good to be able to talk freely about it and talk about like questions now. We can talk about questions now. Like, what do you think about this issue? What do you think about this thing that the church did? Sure. It feels really good. So I feel really grateful for the journey we've been on and where we are currently.
Well, bringing you back to music.
Yeah.
How do you want to input God in your products, and how do you go about it?
So for me, I think I want people to know what I believe and know who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't think that my music necessarily is going to be like Christian music. Like, I don't think I would ever be like a CCM artist or like making like straight up gospel track albums. I love gospel music. I grew up listening to gospel music, but that's just not my personal. I wouldn't want to do that. I feel like, not that it puts you in a box of that there's a lot of things you can't say, but that I do feel like, there's a lot of things I want to talk about that wouldn't really revolve around Christianity.
Yeah, there's more to say.
Yeah. And it's not that it's like I'd be speaking against it. It'd just be more like, this song has literally nothing to do with my faith.
Yeah, it's just outside of it.
It's kind of, so it's like, I don't think that I'm a Christian artist, but I think I'm a Christian artist. If you get what I mean. But yes, I also do have tracks where like and stuff in my music where I definitely want people to know that I'm a Christian, and like, don't get it twisted, like I'm like, that's what I believe in. At the end of the day, my personality and who I am is going to try and reflect, the faith that I have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's get back into your music. We have another one, Soul Talk.
Soul Talk. All right. So, I was going through a bit of a political activist phase when I wrote this track. This track is a sample from a song called Shrimp Dance. I forget the name of the artist, but it is a jazz track. I think it is a Japanese artist. And yeah, the track is called Shrimp Dance. And in this song, I was kind of thinking of like, I really want to speak on politics, and The Heart Part 5 by Kendrick Lamar had just come out. And that song, I was like, bro, this dude can rap. I knew he could rap for a long time, but, but I was like, wow, this song is like, because Kendrick Lamar had taken a big break since, I won't say the name of the album, but that and T-Pab, from those big two albums, he'd kind of taken a break from consistent music writing, and then in that year came out with his album Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and that album and that track really spoke to me, and I was like, there is a lot going on in the world. And so I just decided to talk about any type of political, social issue that I was thinking about, and not necessarily from a super, like, I wouldn't say that if you listen to this, you'd be like, this is a conservative song, this is a liberal song. There really isn't any of that. It's just more of like me speaking on what I was seeing and the things that I was like, oh, this is kind of unjust, and this is just.
Sure.
So yeah, and the phrase soul talk is meant to be a bit of a double entendre, as speaking about talking from the soul, but also you'll see if you listen to the song.
Let's take a listen.
To stop people hurting, so many secrets we all stand on. Just wait until that bag grows. No reason ain't looking further. The pages are melt and strip from the curse of imagination. It's all discrimination, causes defamation, infuriation. All parts of the nation getting vocation with destinations, trying to fix relations with negative connotations. Now everybody's lost their patience with patience, with indescribable death, frivolous pets, keeping the eye set on the gold. Fake patriotic and stripes and goals, running marches until they break right through their souls.
All right, and that was Soul Talk. And is that one also out?
That one is also out.
So be sure to check that out. We're going to hear one more that is not out, and maybe it might not ever be out.
We'll see.
We'll see.
What you're
Who
hearing
knows?
today. So,
But first, I want to get to some of the questions I like to ask all my guests, especially the Christian ones. What is worship to you, and where do you find yourself most in tune with God?
Ooh, that's a great question.
okay. So, for me, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go first?
You go first. Mine might be long.
Okay. So for me, of course, I like music a lot. So I find my appreciation for God a lot in music. Like, there's so much music that I'm like, this is incredible. And I'm like, God really put this person on the earth.
To write that.
So, like, and there's so many great tracks out there, so many great songs that I just listen to, and I'm like, this is really something amazing. This is really something incredible. And this is like, music, I feel, is something where it's like, you might not be able to speak every language or see everyone's problem, but if you and a person like one song, you are tied in that one moment for like the rest of time, you know? Yeah, I think like there's a lot of like there's a couple tracks that that I keep with myself in my mind that I'm just like, wow, these are just really great forms. In fact, there's a symphony by Sergei Rachmaninoff, Symphony Number 9. It's and I want this to be our wedding, in our wedding at some point. But when I listen to that song, I'm like, wow, what a composition this is. This is like, I'm like, this is gorgeous. Especially the resolve at the end of the song. It's just so beautiful. It's like a 14-minute track.
Yeah, sure.
It's a great song. But then there's even just songs that you might not be like, oh, this is completely beautiful, but like songs like Don't Sweat the Technique by Eric B. and Rakim. There's just such a chemistry and thinking about a person was able to write this, create this beat, and flow on it like this. You're like, this person was just gifted with that. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is, but this person was gifted with that, you know? Anything by A Tribe Called Quest just makes me think, wow, God really put these people on the earth to just make straight fire. So, yeah.
That's a quote. That's a snippet.
Yeah. So, music. I have been recently. I do landscaping as well, and just recently in nature I have been. But this is actually her section for talking about that. So.
Well, yeah, definitely in nature. Like I grew up just having this adoration for being outdoors. But before I say that, I just want to say, like, we all have seen the jokes about like contemporary Christian worship and all the memes of like the guy sneaking in on piano while the pastor's finishing up and all those things. And a big argument actually while I was in my little deconstruction phase that I would hear from like ex-Christians.
That's manipulative.
Yes. Yep. They would all say, well, have you ever listened to like the chords and the harmonies, and like it's all pre-planned and manipulative. Like it's the way the music is structured is meant to make you emotional. Yep. It's not that you quote feel the Holy Spirit. And honestly, when I first heard that argument, I thought it was like, I had never heard it before, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're so right. And honestly, it was hard for me to worship after that, because then I would go to church and just hear.
You would realize.
Yeah, I would be like, oh my gosh, yep. I'm crying. The people around me are crying because of the way the music is structured. And then I like stepped back a little bit and I really thought about it, and I was like, okay, God is the ultimate creator, right? And ultimately, He created notes to sound like that and to come into harmonies and the frequencies. Like it's all beautiful for a reason, and the fact that people are able to create those types of harmonies and those types of environments is so telling, and honestly I think is like proof of something greater. So I don't think it's that whether the church is trying to manipulate you or not, like they are trying to create beauty is what it is, and God is the ultimate creator of beauty. So that is worship. Now, something that I have changed my perspective on is I used to believe that like that feeling was the Holy Spirit, right? And honestly, I don't think that I believe that anymore. Like that overwhelming emotional feeling while you worship. I mean, of course God can do anything, but I wouldn't go so far as to say like that's exactly what the Holy Spirit feels like, or, oh, I didn't feel the Holy Spirit in worship today. I do think that's the body's natural response to like a harmonic melody, right?
Yes.
And so I don't think it's necessarily that the Holy Spirit is like showing you something. I think it's just your body's response to a beautiful melody, and that can be worship. Mm-hmm. Like your body's response to that can be worshipful. It doesn't mean that you're being manipulated, you know? Because you could say the same thing if you go to a concert. Is the artist trying to manipulate you when you're all crying? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So it's just creating beauty. And so I think that is worshipful, and I think it's really like, I just feel grateful that I know a lot of people who have like heard that same argument of manipulation and like they left because of it. Right. So I'm grateful that like I found contentment in a type of answer. And but besides that, like I don't think worship just consists of going to church and singing. Like worship is a lifestyle. I fully believe that. Like if you are a humble person and you're trying to live slowly with like what God has given you and you're using your resources well, so many people I feel like don't think about how to incorporate God into small things like their finances. And I'm not even talking about tithing. I'm talking about saving your money, you know? Like, I literally feel like saving, budgeting, like doing well with what you have is so worshipful.
You get the parable of the talents. And all
Yes,
that.
exactly. It's right there. And I feel like people think, oh, I need to worship, so I need to go to worship night at church, which is great. You should go to that.
Sure.
But also think about how can you worship in every other aspect of your life.
How do you worship as you're taking care of your kids? As
Right.
You're doing these other
Exactly.
These other menial things that don't involve church whatsoever, but you're still
Yes.
you're not called to be a Christian on Sunday. You're called to be a Christian every
Totally
single day.
agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, that is such an important aspect of believing in worship, because I think for everyone, like you were mentioning, there is a different aspect of worship, or not necessarily a different aspect of worship, but in worship in and of itself, there are parts in that you say, oh, well, this is me giving the glory to God and giving up a certain type of, space for me to give room to God, for that purpose. And why does that only have to be on Sundays for like 30 minutes?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. That's a really good point.
But also just like obviously being in nature, like Seth said, I still find so much worship in that. And I think people meet God in different ways. And I think however you meet God, you need to practice that and like seriously get on top of that and fit it into your schedule almost. Like I had a professor at my Bible college say like, you guys, and I was surprised that she said this. She was like, you guys come to school and you get so much Bible. So do you really need to get up at 5 a.m. and read your Bible every day? Like, yeah, if you have time for that, do that. But how else do you meet God? Like, in addition to getting theology at school. If that's, like, going on a nature walk for you and going on a prayer walk, you should do that. If that's getting in community, you should do that. Like, there's so many ways, you know?
There's not only one way. And there's so many people that I feel, like Christians, I feel like this is a source of church hurt for a lot of people, that they say there's only one way to worship, and it's this.
Yeah.
But there's not. There's so many ways you can worship. And it doesn't always involve going to church. You can worship, go to church.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go out, everyone needs their Sabbath, right?
Right.
And sometimes being in a Sabbath is by going out to nature and just enjoying the sounds of nature.
So true.
For some people, that's just like putting on the headphones and listening to some music and
yeah.
like figuring stuff out on their own and stuff like that. Some people, it's just going in a room, shutting everything off, and taking a nap.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
that is worshipful.
It's weird because we all know the story about Elijah, where he was panicking to God, and God just said, eat something, take a nap, and it was fine.
Yeah. And, I actually think that our generation is waking up to that. I feel like we know a lot of Christians who have like a healthy definition of worship, and I don't know, I feel really hopeful for our generation. I honestly feel like a lot of millennials have left the church because they recognized the system of hurt that was going on.
Right.
And I think our generation realizes the system, but we haven't like totally unraveled it.
And we've decided to change it.
Yeah, and that makes me hopeful.
Yes.
Yeah, and as a way, I guess, just like, I think there is a way for worship to become nominal.
Yes.
And to become completely kind of just, I'm going with the flow, and I'm kind of just staying here and reading lines after a while. And I think it's important that you view your worship as not just something in name only, but you view it as something that is part of your relationship with God. Because the second that it becomes, I have to stand up and do worship in church, I have to get up, then it's like, is this really a relationship I'm doing? And not to say that everything in Christianity is something you want to do, but at some point you do have to ask yourself, if I'm so tired and sick and stressed about it, is this really good? Is this really working out for me? So,
Agree.
Well, we got one more of your songs, so let's listen to that. And then we'll get into the final questions and final thoughts. If anybody that's watching has any questions for Seth or Carina, please be sure to leave those in the comments, and we will get to those too. Cherry Lips, tell me about it.
Cherry Lips. Okay, so this is just straight up just a love song that I wrote, I think last summer I wrote it. And I just thought it was cool. It was kind of just a fun little track that I was writing about. And this was kind of my first real dip into like R&B.
Okay.
So yeah, I was some influences from around the time were, in terms of the beat and stuff like that, were Steve Lacy, The Internet, and I was listening to some, no, like The Internet, like from Odd Future. No. And then also she got me into an album by Madison Ryan Ward, and just like her beats and like her R&B style, I was like, bro, that's hard. And so a lot of my singing style later on the song is a lot it kind of in reference to some of her music. So yeah.
Let's take a listen to Cherry Lips.
Well, they should stop.
So I thought, because I just like, call me now. Okay.
Well, that was Cherry
Sorry.
That was Cherry Lips. You may or may not find that out in the wild sometime soon.
Cherry Lips, you might. It depends on what I'm feeling by the end of summer, because it is definitely a summer track. It is like definitely a summer track, especially with the guitar influenced in there and the bass. I love the bass in that track. But there's some minor kinks that I want to flesh out with the bass, and some other stuff that I might like want to add another verse. But yeah, I really like the track a lot. We'll see if it gets released.
Well, I've got 2 more questions for you guys, and then we'll send you on your merry way. What is one of the mistakes that you have seen people make in your industry, and how can we curb that for the future generations? See, I got these questions written down.
Wow. I need to think about that. Our industry being the podcast industry, or like entrepreneurs?
Public speaking.
Oh, our individual.
Yeah.
Seth, do you want to go first? I feel like musicians.
Okay. For musicians, I guess, I think sometimes oversaturation is a killer.
Oh, absolutely.
And a lack of awareness, and honestly, a lack of simplicity is a killer. I think something that made, and a lot of people know this, something about the Beatles is that they really weren't amazing musicians.
No, but they made some great songs.
No, yeah, and they did. And I think a big part of them was that they used simplicity to their advantage.
Yes.
You know, a lot of people at the time did. Same thing with, I think, one of the most timeless artists is Jim Croce, when in reality, most of his songs are the same 4 like chord pattern, and then it's just a dude with a guitar singing for like most of his tracks. You know?
You hear stuff like Chuck Berry. He has the same intro.
Yeah.
And he just changes it up.
No, yeah,
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And he's a rock star.
Yeah, and I think also too, not that autotune is bad, but I think that some people use it as a crutch when you sound fine singing, and I think that especially you see this a lot with TikTok culture, that there is such a oversaturation on also these really tacky pre-made beats that are made just to go viral, and so you have 30 seconds of a good decent song and then 2 more minutes of bad music. So it's like, I think musicians need to take more I know obviously you get more popular, but do you really want to be just popular and make a lot of money for 3 months, or make a more consistent money flow for like 20 years?
Right.
You know? So yeah, I mean,
I have so many
like
opinions on all
I mean, people like MF Doom, you know, he never really had a consistent hit or big hit on the radio, but consistently good music. Or someone like Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar has had a couple of big hits on the radio, but Kendrick Lamar is not a person you've probably really heard on the radio too often,
no.
you know? But at the same time, he has a very consistent fan base and is one of the richest rappers out there. So it's like, I think you got to think about your craft, and not even just that, but he's also really well respected, you know, for making really good, consistently quality music. So that's what I would say to a lot of people, especially young artists who are just looking to make that good TikTok track.
Well, Corey, did you want to comment on the TikTok stuff before I go?
I have commented on TikTok stuff so many times before.
Okay.
If you want to check out all my thoughts on that, a good episode for that would be one of James' clip where we talked about AI and TikTok and
oh, interesting.
Like that, and how we fear that, or well, because you know they had the big writer's strike in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And we think that is coming for the music industry.
I agree.
Especially with record labels going to take. Record labels are going to go the cheapest route, right? They're just going to make AI music, and then we'll see a bunch of heavy artists. And we're already kind of seeing this trend already, that independent artists are getting way bigger than label artists.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're going to see more of that trend as AI music gets way better, and we cannot realize that, or the common man won't recognize that that's an AI track.
No, yeah, it's a scary thing. It's a very scary thing. There was a big controversy, I think, with Timbaland, where he wanted to use Biggie, you know, Biggie in one of his tracks, and it was very controversial because he was like, I always wanted to use Biggie's voice on one of my tracks, and people were very like, oh wow, this is.
What are the ethics of that? What is the copyright situation?
It's
on
a good idea. You know?
Right.
Yeah. And can I just say, like, as an audience member, I can always tell when something is written by AI, and I always don't like it. Currently. And
movies too.
Movies? Okay, I don't know if anyone has seen the most recent rom-com, Anyone But You, with Sydney Sweeney, but it is so trash. And I tried to tell, like, all my friends, like, guys, this is not worth your money, just because of the writing. Like, it was so obviously written by AI. I can't even.
Like there's a lot of that. That's why I feel like a lot of like good shows, like currently Star Wars, The Acolyte,
right,
was not good. Like, to put it lightly, I have way more opinions on that show than I care to go into right now.
Right.
But I watched it. I'm like, you literally explained this like 2 minutes ago. And
yeah.
Your characters are flip-flopping all over the place. And it's like,
or the jokes are so bad.
And then Darth Plagueis shows up for like 2 seconds, and it's like,
reeks
why?
Of ChatGPT. Reeks of ChatGPT.
It reeks of not caring about Star Wars and ChatGPT.
Oh my gosh, so many of these films, especially like in the Marvel universe too. You're like, did you watch the previous films?
It's like, did you even care?
Did you watch the last movie?
As soon as I knew this was going to happen as soon as rest his soul Stan Lee passed away, but I didn't expect it so fast.
No,
yeah, it's true.
But yeah, the whole idea, like, I heard it with Wish, the new movie, the Disney movie Wish.
I haven't seen that, but
well, the problem with Wish was that they hired a pop artist to sing or to create Disney songs, Disney-esque songs.
Oh.
Not to put anything on the artist, because I respect what she does.
Julia Michaels?
Yes. Yeah. But you can't, if you want a Disney musical, you can't have a pop artist to write a Disney musical.
I agree.
Because unless you're Lin-Manuel.
He's the exception.
But even then, he has a distinct style too, right?
Yeah.
And he was brought up in musical theater and everything else. You can't have a solely pop artist write, meaningful, superior, in my opinion, musical art.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Don't cancel me. I like Disney.
I know. I feel bad. Like, should we not have said specific titles?
Well.
Who cares? We said it.
Sorry, guys. I probably started it. My bad.
We already said it.
Okay. Well, in the public speaking realm, I will say, and I noticed this with some of my other friends who have done competitions with me, that when we watch a speaker, unfortunately, and I'm sure this is the same for musicians or actors or whatever realm you're in, but when you're watching someone do the same creative activity as you, you're only focused on their methods. Yes. You're not really focused, unfortunately, like even for chapel speakers, right, at LBC, like I'm usually focused on their tactics and like, are they an effective speaker? What's their pitch like, and what's their audience interaction like?
There were some great chapel speakers, and there were some great chapel speakers.
Yeah, that's what I will say. I won't go into detail.
I won't go into any further detail than that.
Something that I think is important is that I would rather see, like, I don't know if I even believe this, but I guess generally I would rather see fruitful words and poor tactics than like really big tactics that are going to draw you in and the words are lifeless,
and
you know?
Nothing.
Right. Because I've noticed that, like, I'll be sitting in chapel or some other speaking event and the speaker will be saying something that I feel like, you know, a teenager or a child could have wrote, but they're so charismatic with it, and their big booming voice, and
they have all the techniques, all the talent,
right,
without the sustenance.
And I'm like, okay, I've seen these tactics before. Like, I've learned these tactics. I know exactly what you're doing. Your words aren't hitting me, you know? So I feel like I notice so much more when a speaker is like shaky or nervous. Like, I'll notice your nerves, but if I'm listening to your words and your words are sticking and being impactful to me, that's going, it's so much, like, it reaches so much further than the opposite. So I would say that's something in my industry. Like, I did a competition once, and a person who had gotten really far in the competition, I felt like as a fellow speaker was like not being genuine with words, but had really big speaking tactics. And I'm like, I just would rather it be the opposite, like genuine words, even if your tactics aren't great. Yeah. So I'm rambling, but that's what I think in my industry.
No, I completely understand, especially with like a platform as a podcast.
Yeah.
You should be saying something, right? As opposed to just rambling on and not really saying much, but it's like quantity over quality, right?
Yeah. Although some people like those podcasts. No, there are podcasts out there that are just like, let's have a conversation about our day and yapper podcasts. And I had a friend who like loves those type of podcasts. So, you know, they exist for a reason, but I do agree, like, if you're going to be in the industry of, like, podcasting with guests, and you have to have, like, a deeper message, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
One last question. Where is one area of your profession that you want to improve on?
Like, every part of it, honestly. I want to, I feel there's always something you can improve on in every aspect of your journey. For me, of course, like, I think in, like, for me, it's music, and then there's, like, the marketing, graphic design aspects in my life. So for graphic design, I have a long way to go. I think I'm decent, but I think I have a long way to go. I still have to be a bit more precise. And I think for me, the biggest thing is, like, time management and, like, detail orientation. I am not always the best at getting things down to, like, a finite detail and getting things done incredibly well in that regard. Not incredibly well, but I'm good at doing things decently. But at the same time, like, it's kind of hard for me to take care of the small, intricate little, like, miniature details of certain things. But my thing is, like, I see the big picture. I know what I want it to sound like, and then it's like kind of, you know, pruning it down and trimming it down to, like, what it could really be to really excel. So I think in music too, I also think I could work on more on my piano skills and my vocal skills, because I'm a decent singer, I'm a decent piano player, but I feel like there's a lot more room I could grow in my range and stuff like that. And I'd love to start making more music and kind of broadening my spectrum. So, yeah.
First of all, Seth, that was way too much.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying, like, you're already so good and you don't see it. And I need you to. He's so talented. And then he's like, I need to fix this and this and this. You can improve, but, like...
Well, that's what we're always the biggest critiques of ourselves.
Like, I don't know. He's just so talented. Like, I don't even know what to do with it sometimes. Okay. Anyway, I guess in my area, like, networking I need to get better at. It's so hard.
Introvert city.
Well, yeah, with podcasts, with speaking stuff, like it's hard to put yourself out there and to say, like, to invite people to things or to be
a whole other skill than just like public speaking.
Right, because you have to be like, hey, come watch me do this thing. I might be bad, but I'm still inviting you to watch me do the thing. So whether we're networking for the podcast or I'm networking for a speaking opportunity, like, it is just very difficult, and most speakers don't have a lot of confidence. Like, I just recently did a competition. It was the international competition, and two of the girls that I had gotten really close with, we had all done our final speeches, and they both came out of the room at the same time. They looked so mad, and they were like, oh my gosh, I did so bad. I need to redo it. I said this wrong and that wrong. And I'm like, guys, relax. And the next day, both of them made it to the next stage.
There you go, right.
I did not. I was very sad. But it's just funny to me that they were both so self-critical, and they were 5 out of 40 to make it in, which is crazy. So, yeah, we are our worst critic, and I know I feel that way about myself, too. So just getting more confidence in that area is, I think, every entrepreneur could work on that.
Well, last question. Where can people find you at?
You can find me at its_DANEYL on Instagram. You can also find me on TikTok as well. And then you can find her. Yeah,
you can find me at Carina_B04. And our podcast Instagram is at _introvert_city. And we're trying to expand to other platforms like TikTok and YouTube as well. So if you're just strolling by and you want to check out our stuff, we would greatly appreciate it.
Subscribe. It's free.
It's free to subscribe.
It's free.
And of course, if you have enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, share with all your friends. And you can find all 246 previous episodes that are just like this on my website, CoreyRosenProductions.com. That's CORYROSEN Productions.com. We can find all the stuff that we do there, including our upcoming film that we I remember I told you about this on the podcast. We just got an American distributor.
No way.
So
congratulations.
Very nice.
Should be coming out very, very soon.
That's awesome.
It's still a long way to go. We still got to cut a trailer and everything else, and that all this fun business stuff, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, please come out to the SRCC, this wonderful spot that we have here. We have our open mics every Wednesday. We have the Short Cinema Showcase where we showcase local short film right here in this space. That will be happening September 1st. So please be sure to come out to that. And we also have our first ever Super Smash Bros. Tournament happening here.
Go.
Yeah, let's go! Yeah! And that's happening November 9th. Free to come, $25 to play with cash prizes for those first, second, and third players. And we'll have food vendors and stuff like that as well. So it should be a lot of fun. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow. I'm going back home to the beach, and I'm interviewing some of my previous high school friends. Ooh, yeah, so that should be fun.
That's interesting.
That'll be super interesting. It'll be my first show that I haven't done. Well, that's not true. I did one at Darrell Davis. That was in Silver Spring. But anyway, that's the first show that I'll be doing like back home. And that'll be really interesting for me. Nice. And seeing what the industry is like over there. Because I actually left that spot because I didn't think there was an industry there. But lo and behold, there is. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.